like to come on out, we'll get up 4 chairs. And so, come on up. Be thinking we have some questions. So it's a little different from the cartoon, isn't it? Yes, how'd you like the show, kids? All right, how about Mom? All right. So, at this point in time, come on, Albert. And go ahead and take a chair. And then Erika. I think she was on higher, so she's going to work her way to get here. All right. I want to start off by introducing the panelists. And let's see, where's Erika? She's coming, I think. Where is she? There she is. All right, come on up. So, to begin with, thank you for being here. MarTeze Hammonds, who is the BFW's Chief Diversity Officer. So thank you for being our moderator. And then Albert Brownlee, our guest director for this production. Give another round of applause. And Sapari, Erika Cervantes, who's with Mexicano Newspaper. And Kibwe Cooper, who you all know. Eugene Krabs. So I will turn it over to MarTeze. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Great day, everyone. Wasn't that such an awesome show? I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Good job. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion, mostly diversity and inclusion, especially around the arts. So when we're talking about diversity, we're talking about differences, unique differences, as we saw on stage today. It was so much diversity, and I was really pleased to see that. So we're going to start off, we can just go down the line, just tell a little bit about, a quick second about just why diversity matters to you, and especially in the arts.
Sure. Diversity in the arts matters because, representation is essential. We hear that often, but it's true in every aspect of society, and in the arts, oftentimes, there's a very closed system. And so we have to work to actually open that system up to include others, particularly in live theater. It's a very closed environment.
And when you talk about closed environment, dig a little deeper about closed environment. Unpack that for us.
When I say closed environment, I mean that typically you don't see many persons of color, and not just African American of any color. A lot of that has to steal from the stories that are told, and that they're typically Caucasian focused, and so you see Caucasian leads, Caucasian storylines. But I like to say, excuse my voice, but I like to say that, oftentimes when you see persons of colors in shows, it is on shows that simply highlight our trauma. And outside of that, so it's good when you see something like this that can really be blind cast, where it doesn't require any specific person. Anyone could have been SpongeBob, anyone could have been Patrick. And so the Civic Theater was very intentional in that, and we were very open in our casting process, as well as in who we wanted to attract to be a part of the show.
Awesome. We'll come back to that, because I want you to talk a little bit more about that, on that intentionality of casting, right? So let's just keep going. Maybe just talk a little bit about the importance of diversity within arts.
Got it. I think just like anything, art imitates life, right? And so if we want to actually depict impactful stories that empower other people, then we have to make sure that everybody and all the different looks and shades and sizes is involved in the production and in the creation of art. And if we are intentional about creating spaces where those dialogue stories are welcomed, we'll see a lot more unity, in my opinion, because of our shared human experiences. And so if you don't have diversity and inclusion in artistic environments, we don't get an opportunity to walk in another person's shoes. And that's very essential if we're going to understand one another on a human level And so that's why I think it's super important.
Absolutely, and I remember one of the characters saying at the very end that stuck with me, I'm gonna go find somewhere where I feel welcome, right? And so you oftentimes have to go find those spaces and places if they're not already created within the norm or the traditional spaces, right? Erika?
Totally agree. What I see diversity as is embracing ourselves as well as others. So even though I look different, or maybe I speak different from the person sitting next to me, that's okay. It's okay to be different. It's okay for us to shine in a different way. But we have to understand that we're not all the same. We live in a boring life if we're all the same. So for us to be different, you know, it makes it so much of a better world. Yeah, it's about embracing each other, I would say.
And I like when you said, Erika, about embracing each other because, you know, one can be invited and still not feel welcome.
Right.
Right? And so it seems like, although she was invited, she still didn't feel welcome.
Right.
And sometimes in theater spaces, I have a theater degree and I was in community theater since I was 6. And oftentimes I was the only person that looked like me in the theater, right? And so although invited, I wasn't always feeling like I was included, which is that welcoming piece, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. I want to say that I, in the last past, I guess, 2 weeks, have been to theater in Fort Wayne, and they were very intentional about casting and about casting diverse casts. So I went to see Hairspray, and almost 50% of their kids were actually people of color. And I was like, whoa, where did this come from? I thought there was going to be white people playing black people. And I was like, whoa, I can't wait to see this happen. But it actually didn't happen that way. They actually had students that were there that were amazing, talented students. So sometimes you hear, well, we just don't have a pool of people to pull from. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this pool of people, this representation, and how we can be intentional about that in the theater. And I know you've done a lot of directing around here, so talk to us about casting.
So one of the things that you have to do when you're casting is you have to make sure that your messaging goes out to the population that you're seeking to involve. So we have to make sure that we're spreading our net, if you will, wide enough to attract various types of persons there. So with this, again, working with Civic Theater, very upfront from the first time Philip contacted me over a year ago. He said, we really want to focus this show in on diversity, and we would like you to be a part of that. How do you think we best can do that? And so one of the things that we did was we made sure we not only followed their traditional outlets for audition notices, but there were notices in the ink spot or
Oh, Mexicano Newspaper, yes.
And so, you know, we made sure that those things happened, and to make sure that the messaging was there, that this show was welcome, that all are welcome here. I was formerly on the board of the Civic Theater, and we've always had, that's always been a part of our focus and one of the initiatives, but we've had struggles in obtaining that, meeting that mission, and sometimes you can't find. When we did Memphis several years ago, it was a little challenging finding persons of color to fill all those roles. And so I said to Philip, do you mind if I go out and just put this message in some other areas? And then we were able to do that. And so we have to learn also how to partner with others in our community, just to let them know, you know, that this is a welcome space for all.
Nice, nice. Being in the show, talk about being in the show and so much diversity. How did that feel? What was the look and feel?
I think, you know, it's always great to see other black folks in shows, you know. It is taxing and somewhat boring to always be the black person in a show or a function or whatever. And so it's nice to see the varying different people who are in the show. And I think as an artist, it makes you more comfortable, right? Because, you know, I think it's similar in any instance. If you're the only person who may have your interests or inflections or knowledge base or frame of reference, you start to feel really awkward, you know, because certain things aren't funny to you that are funny to everybody else, and certain things are hilarious to you that nobody else is laughing at. So, you know, it just becomes a really awkward social environment, which we have to traverse, right? As people of color, as non-represented people in any demographic or you know, sect. I think you have to traverse those environments. You have to be the person to be the first one in certain cases. And so it was really refreshing to not have to do that in this show and to just be able to come in and have a good time and learn good music and share some camaraderie and some really awesome stage time. So
Nice. And from a community's perspective and also from a news outlet perspective.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit.
We're thankful for Fort Wayne Civic Theater. Phil came out to us, as well as Capri Williams, and we did a live video to invite our community, our Hispanic community, to participate in the casting, which was great. It gives off a great sense of security, like for your community as well, to know that they're invited, welcome, to be part of such a great show. And today's show was just amazing. And when you are able to do it in that form, I think it just allows people to believe in themselves as well, to believe in their talent, that sometimes we're afraid. We're afraid and we believe that we're not worth what we are. So always, I think it was great for you guys to come out and do it that way, because it was very inviting, very welcoming, I believe.
Have to meet people where they are, right?
Yeah.
So this next question I have for you all is for our young people who have sticking around. There were so many messages in this show, right? So many life-learned messages. So maybe just pick one of them and talk about how important it is for us to build a sense of inclusion, right? So whether it's against bullying, against someone's race or ethnicity or culture because they're not from here, they're a land animal, right, or mammal or what have you. How many times I've heard that in places and spaces, you're not from here, right? So just talk about a little bit, one of the lessons that you would like to share with a student or a kid, especially in reference to inclusion. Anybody can start.
I would just say, did you want to go first? I would just say it's important from a lessons perspective to stand on who you are and what you know. It's important to be humble enough to learn and to grow, but I really like how even in spite of the negative reception that Sandy was getting, she still pursued what she knew to be true based off of what she had calculated and all those big words she was saying. It made sense to her, and so she continued to act on it. And even if there are only a couple of people who see your value, it's important to keep growing, and it's important to keep moving forward, even if other people don't understand you, even if other people ostracize you, if you don't fit in with the normal people you might fit in with. Just continue to develop and to grow, and your talent and your abilities, your intellect, your identity is going to make space for you. And so any of the themes I want young people to pick up is sometimes people disliking you is actually a good thing, because when people are challenged by you, whether it's your talent, your perspective, your life experiences, it actually is really empowering. And so you don't want to take it as a negative thing, even though it can make you feel some kind of way. Just keep standing in your truth and keep learning and growing. Don't get super rigid and climb that mountain.
I like to call that fuel for motivation. Fuel to motivate you to keep going. Thank you for sharing that.
So, SpongeBob, you're just a simple sponge. No, he's more than just a simple sponge, and he just kept at it, kept on going. Just believing, once again, believing in yourself that you are capable. It's okay to make mistakes. If we don't make mistakes, we're not trying, right? So just all that part, I guess, what would we call it, like bullying, downplaying SpongeBob, but yeah. So just all of that, embracing who you are. It's okay to be humble, but it's one thing to be humble, and it's another thing to be humiliated, So just believing in yourself, going at it, and never stop trying.
I like that.
Yeah, one of the things, as I was sitting here listening to them, is that for me what sticks out is that in the absence of information, people create their own narrative. And you saw a lot of that in the show. They didn't really understand what was going on, and so people began to kind of formulate their own opinions. So blame the squirrel, let's offer a sacrifice, let's try to figure out a way. And then the next thing that normally comes behind that is because what we don't understand, we fear. And so then you saw how fear then led to the decisions that they made, or how they were treating one another, or the lack of confidence that they had, or the desire to ostracize Sandy just because she was different. All of that was just spurred by their fear of the unknown, fear of what was going to happen. And so we really have to work to challenge ourselves, one, that when we don't know something or know something about another culture, about people or individual, it's okay to acknowledge that and then to learn from it. To say that, I don't understand, or can you explain that to me? You know, even when it comes to back to the theater world, you know, it's great to open up the theater to other groups of people, but there are certain theater rules and theater etiquette that people don't know. And so those bring some challenges, some inherent challenges. There are some things about timing in the theater that can become challenging for those who are used to operating in a certain manner. And so you just have to be open enough and broad enough to have those kind of conversations and to be willing to say, this is what this environment is. But then that environment also has to be willing to be flexible, to understand that while this may be the norm that's been established, it doesn't mean that that norm is the only way, or that that norm is even the right way. It's just that this is what we've always done.
So I'm hearing a couple of things. One of the things I'm hearing is, again, folks, you don't know what you don't know, right? And the way you do know or get to know is ask genuine questions. If you don't know, ask genuine questions to people that may represent that culture or what you don't know, and or do the work. Sometimes it's about www.com and going and doing that work and learning about these cultures. The other thing is meeting people where they are, especially in the theater world, in the arts world. I've run into so many issues with my schedule and my timing, and we were doing a play, A-Man Corner. I don't know if anybody heard this years ago, and the director, the first director, was a white male with an all-black cast almost. And so he would get there 20 minutes early. We would get there right on time and sometime later because of our life circumstances. We were all coming from different backgrounds, and most of them never had any theater experience at all. So they didn't know the conventions. They didn't know, you got to sign in and check in with a stage manager and do this, that, and the other. So sometimes it's also about that knowledge that they don't know. You have to really help cultivate and acclimate others into our space in theater. Some people, when we said go upstage, they were going downstage. They didn't know the difference, right? And so that is most definitely true. The last thing I'll say too is about the lessons learned. One thing I noticed is that everybody at the end had one goal, right? And they did whatever they could, and even when they feared, even when they were going, they should have gone right and they were going left, they were all trying to accomplish that one goal. And so if we can keep our eyes on the prize of inclusivity, of equity within the theater, I think we'd be a little bit more better than we are today, and have that one sense of pride. Maya Angelou said, to know better is to do better. To know better is to do better. And so as we continue in these veins of projects such like this, and diversity in theater, as we continue across, Fort Wayne has a lot of things going on around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Quit using it as a check in the box, right? Really find sincere and genuine ways to learn about diversity, to be about diversity, meet people where they are, and then hopefully we can be a more equitable place as we continue. I'm going to let you all have one final thing before we wrap it up. Just, as we think of diversity, equity, inclusion, as we're thinking of this experience, what has this experience meant to you?
Every day, try to be the best version of yourself. I'm by far not perfect, but every day just try to to become like a better version than what I was yesterday. Embracing myself, embracing all of the community together, you know.
Thank you.
My last thing would be to say diversity and inclusion, equity, belonging, all those things, those are not activities, those are relationships. And relationships are something that you continually invest in, both in your time, in your messaging, in the intentional acts that you do for those to facilitate that relationship. And so when you want to encourage equity and inclusion, all those other buzzwords that get you a lot of grant dollars, you need to be mindful of the fact that these are long-standing relationships that you're building. You shouldn't be putting together a singular activity to then promote something that could take years to fully bring to fruition. And so if you invest in something long-term and you think, I'm going to invite X amount of people every show, I'm going to bring X amount of people to rehearsal schedules, or open up a workshop or something, like just to get people more acclimated to what value you have, and then to encourage them to come forth. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't go places I already know is going to be sketch for me, right? Many of us avoid parts of town that we worried about being in. So let alone sending your kids to go participate in something, let alone taking yourself and your time and everything else to go show up someplace where you don't feel like you're going to be seen. And so when you intentionally create relationships with leaders, with organizations, then the people you're trying to reach start to see you as an ally, start to see you as an accessible resource. And that's when you're going to really start to see equity and inclusion and belonging and new voices and narratives. You don't just throw out a hook and pull in diversity. That's not how it works. And I think sometimes in Fort Wayne, we don't have a long-term investment strategy, right? We want to get the grant dollars, we want to look like we're doing a good job, which is there's nothing wrong with those things. However, in the absence of true intention and real investment, it can get really plastic, and we all can see it, right? And so that would be my last thing, just to think of all of this stuff as a continued conversation in a relationship. It can actually be fun to challenge yourself, to ask people questions, just let them know, look, this could be wildly offensive. I might use language that I don't know is offensive to you, but I have a question, and I don't want you to bite my head off, and if you need to express yourself, you're more than welcome to, but X, Y, Z, I don't understand this. Can you just explain this to me? It's not everybody's job to explain things to you, but if you invite a conversation in a civil tone, more times than not, people will share their truth with you. And I think, and I'll let you guys go, but I just think that, that we got to start thinking about it as a long-term investment strategy.
That was all good nuggets. Good nuggets. You said Baptist preacher that says, hey, and as I go to my seat, go ahead, you can end this off.
My final thought would just simply be, if you do what you've always done and expect different results, then that's insanity. And so to get different results, we have to do different things. And this is even for parents and for any of us that's out there with the sphere of influence that we have. My mother's here tonight, and this is a full circle moment for me to be in the director's chair. I've done plenty of shows at Civic Theater, and I've directed many shows around town. First time directing here, but my first time actually performing in this building on this stage, I was a kid. I was 11 years old. Parents came to see me. I grew up in a black area of town, if you will. So this was not a building I had been in before. But one of my school teachers said, hey, you should go be a part of youth theater. And they were doing a show, and I got cast in a lead role. And that started a whole thing that leads to this moment. Now, years and years later, that only happened because my mother and my father were willing to invest in me and to take me into a different environment I had never been in. And so I wouldn't be sitting here speaking as a director if I had never stepped outside of my comfort zone and outside of what was common to me. And so one of the things that we have to do, not just on a very personal level, but even outside, externally, we have to be willing to try different things and to do new things. One of the things that really made me excited about this opportunity is because I really saw what I would call a sincere effort from the Civic Theater to do something different and new, to my knowledge. Now, they've been here 95 years. I'm nowhere near that. And Philip's been here for a good portion of that, but he's not 95. So, but to my knowledge, I'm the first African-American kid from this community who's actually directed a show here.
That's what's clapping right there.
And I say that not to say, oh, pat me on the back. I'm saying that's how real change happens. Because this opens a door then for any other kid, Latino, African-American, Burmese, whomever, who says that space isn't open to me. And it absolutely 100% is.
Sometimes you can't be what you don't see, right? And so thank you very much for trailblazing this path and thank you all very much for opening the door. Again, sometimes you can be invited but not feel welcome. And so this coming full circle is one of those welcoming moments. And as more people see this experience, maybe more students and more folks will come and audition on their own, right? Without any having to have cheerleaders to get us in, because they feel more welcome, because they can connect to you who has connected already to this theater. It's all yours.
Yes. And I thank you to all of you, because the Civic Theater, we're on a journey. We're learning. And we are learning by doing. Yes, we make mistakes, but we have to jump in. And I think the greatest thing that's happened in Fort Wayne just recently was the United Front. Conversations that were happening in our community, and so that's really helping to open a lot of doors, I believe, and a lot of understanding of the other side, of the other people's points of view. And so it's not always easy, but it's to break that conversation and to get it going, because we are going to step on our feet sometimes. But it's important that we continue to provide opportunity. And I have to put a commercial plug in here. We couldn't have done it without the National Endowment of the Arts for our support for this, so I had to get that in. But thank you for this opportunity, and I'm announcing this earlier. I said it earlier to the cast. We're going to be doing The Color Purple next year in February during African American History Month. And so I'm very proud that we're able to provide this opportunity. So normally we don't announce that until like 6 months from now. So, so yes, and it's breaking that barrier. And I think my eyes opened up in working with Erika as well, and your father, Fernando. And so different communities are different, and it's learning that. And so I still need more education on how to reach your community and vice versa, but we're starting. So, foot in the door. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, our panelists, MarTeze, Albert, Kibwe, and Erika. So give them all a round of applause. Thank you all for being here.